Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Global Diabetes Insights episode. Today we have Pedro with us, an advocate from Lebanon and a person living with type 1 diabetes. I'm so happy because I was considering this session for over a year, but things got in the way. So I will start by kindly asking you to introduce yourself and say some words about who are you, what are you doing, what are your interests, and all of this stuff.
Well, firstly, let me thank you for having me today, Konna. It's been a while. It's truly an honor for me to be here with you on this podcast. I've been always a fan of what you do and of the Global Diabetes Insight podcast and everything. And I truly appreciate such an opportunity to be with you today. What I like to also speak about that you share diabetes stories that's across borders. It's not just the way you do, it's in the place where you are. So it makes the story more unique because DiaLeb affects millions of people. I want to speak here about Lebanon. It's affecting thousands of people in Lebanon, according to the Diabetes Atlas. Approximately 557,000 people in Lebanon are living with all types of diabetes, type 1 diabetes, type 2 diabetes, all types. And that's approximately 12% of the country. So 12% of Lebanon is living with diabetes. It's not a normal number according to the size of Lebanon and how small Lebanon is in size. Firstly, I would like to introduce myself. Well, my name is Pedro Derjani, and I've been living with type 1 diabetes since 2016. I'm currently hold the advocacy coordinator role with the National Diabetes Organization, which is DiaLeb. I also represent them as a young leader in diabetes within the International Diabetes Federation program. Apart from this, I also represent them in the MENA region board, and today in the MENA region board of the International Diabetes Federation, and I act as a focal point for Lebanon with the IDF MENA region and the IDF representing DiaLeb. Studied political science at the Holy Spirit University of Kaslik, and I'm also mastering in diplomacy and strategic negotiations. My main concern is health diplomacy and public health. Seeing myself representing Lebanon on various occasions. When I was doing my studies, I thought, why not to do something that is parallel to my matter, which is diabetes, which is how can I serve my community within my profession, within my career? How can I do something that reflects positively on the people who are living with diabetes in Lebanon? And of course, my story started 10 years ago when I was firstly diagnosed. I started to feel with the symptoms that many of us felt. I started to go constantly to the toilet, starting to drink a lot of water. I started to lose weight in a very short period of time, never knowing why. I used to talk about it. I used to talk about my symptoms, but unfortunately, not everyone was understanding what I was talking about. Even my mom was telling me it's because of the temperature, it's because of the weather, everything is changing. No one took my symptoms seriously. Also at school, I felt the diabetes stigma because I wanted to go actually to the bathroom, and the teachers and the professors and everyone didn't understand me. So I was, to a certain extent, expelled from school because they thought that I was running away from classes. Meanwhile, the only thing that I wanted to go is to go to the bathroom. And when you feel the symptoms, it's not easy. It's on constant basis.
Were you aware what diabetes is? Did you have any idea, or it was just symptoms and not a clue?
That was one of the first things that I faced. I didn't have any idea what is diabetes. I only knew that diabetes comes at a very old age. I didn't have the diabetes education, neither the diabetes knowledge, neither a very short introductory into diabetes. What is diabetes? And what happened with me in my school, I never had the knowledge about diabetes. I felt in a certain way that I needed to do something about it. Back in my school days, I was a social person. I used to be the delegate of the classroom. At university, I chose to study political science because I love politics and I have passion towards politics. But I didn't have any knowledge about diabetes. You try to intersect between both, Konna. Based on my community work, my love and my passion towards the community, towards politics, towards engagement within our society, I started to search for a community based in Lebanon towards diabetes. But before all of this happened, I remember I was at my endocrinologist back then. She introduced me about diabetes because back then I was hospitalized and my new life started, how to manage my diabetes on daily basis. So my healthcare started to tell me stories about diabetes, about certain people living with diabetes, how easy is it to deal with diabetes. And to be honest, I didn't took her seriously. And she told me about DiaLeb. And I told her, what is this? Is it a group of old people living with diabetes? I never knew that diabetes comes at an early age. I just knew that diabetes come at a very old age. And that was one of my problems until one day when I firstly got diagnosed. Actually, I didn't know that I can get married, I can continue to play football, I can live a normal life. Because in my head, and according to the concept that I have and I share about diabetes, I know that diabetes comes at a very old age. So I thought that I grew up. I'm not longer a young boy who recently got diagnosed. I don't know if it was hard or it was easy. I don't remember how I dealt with it, but I started to manage diabetes daily. Throughout this experience, Konna, I was introduced to DiaLeb when I was at my endocrinologist because of a magazine that had Sylvie's picture, Sylvie Malouf, that it is the daughter of Dr. Jackie Malouf, the president of the organization of the National Diabetes Organization, DiaLeb. And I saw her with her siblings and her family. And when I saw someone who was able to get married and build such a family, and especially a woman, I found hope in myself because if she's a woman, I can do it. Something happened to my mind. I started to search, do some research about DiaLab. What do they do? How can I get known to them? And I followed Dr. Jackie on Instagram. I followed the organization. Then my endocrinologist also introduced me to DiaLab, and now we're here.
Your path from the day of your diagnosis to meeting DiaLeb and finding a purpose there and the compensation mechanism, how was your relation with diabetes? Was it like easy? Are you just obeying the rules and not really knowing what's going on? How was it till that day?
I want to be honest with you, Konna. I didn't know what was going. I was managing my diabetes without knowing what's going on. They told me to take 3 units of insulin. I take 3 units of insulin. They take me to this, to take this. I didn't know anything about diabetes. That's why when I tell you, I don't remember whether it was a problem, whether it was easy. Maybe because I was in a shock, maybe because I was introducing myself to a newer lifestyle. I was sad. I was sad about the situation because I wanted to live a healthy life, of course, but that was a concept in my head. It's because of the community in Lebanon and also the lack of education and lack of awareness people have in Lebanon towards people living with diabetes. No one could introduce me to diabetes in a smoother way, far away from hospitals and clinics and stuff.
The
I
scientific part
needed,
of it, yeah.
yeah, the scientific part, and I needed people to talk with about diabetes, and I couldn't find any people who, them and I, we shared the same lifestyle. And once I was at a doctor here in our village who I was visiting, he told me that there's like 10, 11 people in your village who has the same case as you, type 1 diabetes. 10 years I live with type 1 diabetes. I still don't know who are these people. It's because of stigma. It's because people are scared to talk about diabetes. The taboo about diabetes, they pity you in your society because you live with diabetes. They pity this in our society because of diabetes. And it's actually sad. Today, I tell them, I feel sad for you, not the opposite.
Yeah. Throughout the years, we see that the representation of diabetes has really changed. We can shape this change in a word called advocacy, which is an umbrella term for many actions. You are an advocate, you are active in diabetes advocacy. Express what does advocacy mean to you, what it has offered to you, what you have offered as well through advocacy.
I want to remember someone who played an important role in this, the late Bastian Hock, when we were in the YLD sessions. When he first arrived to our room and started to introduce himself, his first words was, I studied politics in the Middle East. I've done Middle Eastern relations at the American University of Beirut. And here my curiosity started to burn more. How I was actually amazed that as much as this world is big, this person studied politics in Beirut and he's a diabetes advocate. The moment he stopped speaking, we all remember I raised my hand and according to my notes, I asked him, what do diabetes has to do with politics and advocacy? So according to Bastian, diabetes was deeply political. Access to insulin, to reimbursement, to stigma, research, funding, and healthcare system are all shaped by decisions, policies, and people. He helped me to see that my academic background and my living experience are not separate paths, Konna. They could intersect with each other, they can work together, and they can connect with one another. From my perspective, as I see advocacy as a collective effort between people who share the same experience. Every one of us and every individual can be an advocate towards someone, towards a certain cause, or towards a thing. We all share the same passion towards making the world a better place for people living with diabetes. And when we think about such a concept, from my perspective, how do I see this approach towards advocacy? Well, my approach is more as advocacy when it becomes a policy. How does we make the world a better place for people living with diabetes? We raise our voice in a very well structured way. It's a collective effort. It's not based about me. No, it's more about the people who share the same experience. We can make the difference, not just Pedro or not just a certain organization. And when I got into the YLD room the first time, Konna, last April, when we were in the trainings in Bangkok, in the YLD trainings, I was fascinated when I saw inspiring people like you, like all of our colleagues, having the best technologies, having the best pumps, having a very easy access to care. Meanwhile, I don't have the same, or people living with diabetes don't have the same access to care. And here my curiosity started to go through more and more. Why? I asked this question. How can we make the world a better place for people living with diabetes in Lebanon? What is missing? How can we raise our voice for this? Who are the people in charge? And everything in my mind started to brainstorm from one thing to another. How can we do it? And here things started to make sense more to me. Of course, they have a healthcare system. I have a collapsed state. I have a collapsed healthcare system. How can I manage this? What should I do? I think it's more about the collective effort. I don't think that diabetes has borders, Konna. I saw amazing people from diverse cultures, diverse ethnic groups, Diabetes, it's not about the people that are living in Lebanon. 450,000 people living with diabetes in Lebanon, 12% of the country. No, it's all the MENA region, it's all the world, it's all the diverse cultures. And it's not about me. It's about the stories that I hear about people living with diabetes. It's all about the ups and downs. It's what I learned from these inspiring people to make diabetes care better in my country. And that's one of the things that was the most important to me, that I learned more about diabetes. And every day, every conference, every advocacy session I attend, I engage in, I learn new things because of the collective effort from the people who make the world a better place for people living with diabetes and make things smoother for us.
I totally agree. I often say if only stakeholders and people who make choices could live a day as a person with diabetes, so many things would have been different. Being active doesn't mean that there are not steps being taken. It means that you represent yourself, and having to win some battles in order to gain access to the basics means that we are still not in the that we want to be. The barrier that people carry with them diabetes cannot be explained easily. You already mentioned it, but we both attended last year Young Leaders for Diabetes project by International Diabetes Federation in Thailand, Bangkok. I would like you to take us through that journey and what it meant to you personally and professionally.
It was a lifetime experience. If you need to ask me what was the best experience in your lifetime, I will tell you the YLD program when we attended last April back in Thailand, in Bangkok. Why would you ask me this? Because apart from the National Diabetes Organization in Lebanon, which is DiaLeb, I never knew people living with diabetes in Lebanon. I couldn't talk with people living with diabetes on constant days. I used to search for people living with diabetes, and I knew them in our society. Maybe if they had the CGM, I could recognize that they have the same case as I, and I would go and approach them, and I will start asking question and do the ice breaking. But if not, I couldn't find people having the same case, and I could speak with them freely, the same way we might speak, me and you, Konna, about diabetes, or when I speak about diabetes with our colleagues, with our stakeholders. It's not the same. And when I think about diabetes, it requires a constant attention in a certain way. It's a 24/7 job. I have a different experience than the majority in my way than the majority of my YLD colleagues, because I'm not here to compare, but I come from a country that it has economic collapse, that has political tensions, that has an ongoing war. Crazy what that was going in Lebanon and is going today. And I always ask myself why. So when I entered the room of the YLD for the first time, and we were having, as you remembered, on the first day, the buffet, before we all started to eat and we entered the room, everyone raised their t-shirts like that, Constantina. Everyone started to raise, and they all like, can you imagine 60 advocates, 70 advocates represented from all around the world taking insulin boluses at the same time? It was like the World Cup of diabetes. Like, I needed this so much. I felt normal. It was one of the few times I take insulin in public and not being judged. I felt emotional. I didn't want this experience to a certain extent to end. And I still see myself a part of it, and I will always see myself a part of this beautiful community. So it was a lifetime experience, Konna. We don't live such experiences on daily basis. These were one of the most powerful and most beautiful, as I can say, 5 days of my life. The things that I learned from and took with me to Lebanon was amazing, from technologies, from things I learned from the trainings, from the amazing young advocates that became part of my family. So everything started to make sense. Now, if I need anything, I can just hold my phone, text one of the YLDs, and ask him about my situation, and he would reply in minutes. It is different, and I don't have the same experience in Lebanon. As I can say, the YLD trainings were my first travel experiences. So everything started to make sense, and I became more eager to learn more about diabetes, about advocacy. What can I learn to make things better for people living with diabetes in Lebanon within my parent organization, DiaLeb, who I proudly represent?
Um,
Wherever I can be in my society, a positive role. And it all started from the community.
it was like building a bridge across so many countries, so many people. The energy was there. It's 100% recommended to every person living with diabetes, no matter if they're feeling a bit scared, a bit the sense of fear disappear within the first 5 minutes as they walked into the room. I think that applications for the next YLD will open soon if they're not already open. Share the same experience. It was such an honor to have met you there. You live in Lebanon. We are all aware of what's going on there. I won't get political. We know that there are people suffering from current situation there. I would like to focus on how it is like to live as a person with diabetes in a country that has such political ability, how secure or insecure people with diabetes feel, and what can be done to support them.
Approximately, and according to Diabetes Atlas, 475,000 people are living with diabetes in Lebanon. That's 12% of the country. As I said, and I mentioned previously, living with diabetes needs and requires a constant attention. Now, imagine adding years of economic crisis, political instability, economic collapse, and conflicts with our neighbors. People with diabetes don't only ask, what should I eat today? No, they ask, will insulin be available next month? When the situation started this year, people started to buy and panic buy insulin in bulks because according to the Ministry of Public Health, they said that there's a shortage of insulin in the pharmacies, and there's approximately between 3 and 5 months of insulin storage. Now, this is a crisis. We're getting into a crisis and a certain type of uncertainty. That's why people started to panic buy insulin in bulks. And we were all aware about the future, and we all asked, will we have insulin next month? Will How will we live as people living with diabetes with this situation when we don't have as I can say, the least mean towards access to life, which is insulin. Without insulin, you cannot live. I don't want to be political, but I pity that, and it's a pity that the ministry and the government don't take 12% of the country into consideration. That what will you do if 12% of the country, let's say, died? I don't want to talk about sensors, I don't want to talk about these technologies, but I want to talk about electricity. In a lot of times, and in the majority of the day, the electricity in Lebanon will be cut off. Will electricity stay long enough to refrigerate insulin? As I can say, the least things for life, we are missing them, and no one is taking them into consideration. Instead of investing in a healthy society, investing in a healthy community, the least means for life, we don't have them. And we keep on asking, will pharmacy receive supplies? When the first shootings and when the first war escalated, we're talking about people who fled their homes. Approximately 1,500,000 people fled from the southern part of Lebanon into, firstly, into the capital. And when the capital started to get bombed, I was one of the people who fled away from the capital because I used to live there because I needed to attend my university and my work, and I had to go into the northern part of the country to my village. From these people, from the people who fled away, I ask myself, of course, there's people living with diabetes, whether type 1, whether type 2. That's the least. How are they adapting? Because when they fled away, they went into the public schools and universities. They all opened shelters for them. We, the Lebanese community, helped everyone. Whoever have an empty home, we opened our homes for them, and we welcomed them, and we sheltered people in our homes. There were a lot of diabetes cases, but the people who fled away, they're 5, 6 hours far away from their hospitals, from their pharmacies, from the places they get their supplies from. And it affected everyone personally. We asked ourselves, a lot of people asked, should we take less boluses of insulin? Should we not eat enough so we can store extra insulin in our homes? How will we have the means to buy insulin? One of the major problems in Lebanon and in the economic collapse, Kona, is the average minimum wage in Lebanon is $300 USD cash in dollars. The average price of insulin between long and short-acting insulin in Lebanon, a bottle of 4 pens is approximately between $40 and $60. How will people living with diabetes in Lebanon can continue, and how can we ensure their continuity in life? It's actually sad, it's actually devastating, but at the same time, I've learned a lot people who were being resilient, who didn't let diabetes define them, didn't let diabetes define who they are. I've seen a lot of healthcarers and hospitals who were willing to help. Also, the ministry played an important role for the people living with diabetes. DiaLeb, my parent organization, through community-based things, also helped. Healthcare workers who continued to work under constant pressure, and we lost a lot of healthcarers in the war who didn't have anything to do with the conflict that was happening. Konna. It is sad. I don't know what will be the future, but all I know that as much as we have people who are resilient in Lebanon and who are willing to help and who are willing to make the world and the future a better place, I am optimistic, but also the eyes should be more on Lebanon. The media should cover Lebanon more. In a lot of times, and in the majority of the times, Lebanon is hurt. We need to do better for Lebanon. Also, Lebanon needs to do better in legislations, in policies, in the parliament, in whatever we can do laws for people living with diabetes. We can ensure their continuity, invest in a better and a healthier community. It is important because 12% in the country, 12% will provide better if they were healthy enough, and the country provided them with the least means for their continuity of life, things will be much better.
It's devastating to hear with my condition going through just some kilometers away. Although I agree with people being resilient and strong enough, I don't think that should be up to us to be strong enough. I think things should be provided. As long as people among us aren't safe, we are all not safe, because today's Lebanon, tomorrow is another country, and seeing how our lives and the basics for everyone considered basics from people who take decisions for us. It's such a warning. I don't want to be pessimistic, but I suggest that people with diabetes good to be prepared and have a storage whenever something needs to be a bit unstable. I don't suggest people to buy 200 cannulas of insulin, but having a small shortage of equipment that should be your fuel in some months of crisis, I find essential. And I will bridge that to the organization that you are part of. We have also hosted the president of DiaLeb and her daughter in a previous podcast. I think it's been a year that I've hosted them. It should be last summer. Yeah.
Last summer, when
Uh,
Tino also contacted me, yeah, I remember.
DiaLeb is an organization with such a legacy, and I admire the organization because I don't think it stands on the glamorous side of diabetes and the conferences and everybody being dressed up. It's people who go and knock on doors and ask people what are their needs and actually cover them. And I know it's not a metaphor; it's a reality. I want to speak about this organization. How much how they have reacted to this crisis that's going on nowadays in your country?
When we talk about DiaLab, I'm talking about my parent, my mom and dad in diabetes. That's my parent organization. That's the organization that played a vital role in my life, and it is still playing and will continue to play. What this organization made to me on the personal levels, coming from an outer field, never knowing anything about diabetes, then gave me the privilege to be sitting on the table and doing advocacy, and whatever DiaLab had provided me from education, from awareness, from events that I took part in when I firstly got introduced to DiaLab. And I remember in my first advocacy session with them, I met inspiring people living with diabetes who were from my age. Andrew, who was a YLD, also Fatima, Noor, and you will see also new YLDs that we will elect them in the upcoming cohort. And all of them, I met them in DiaLab. I met people who, them and I, we share the same cause, who are similar. We simply live with diabetes. We can talk frequently about diabetes. We share the same ups and we share the same downs. We can talk about the same thing. And Dr. Jackie, the president of the organization, played an important role in my life because she's a mentor. And in our diabetes world, the mother of people living with diabetes in Lebanon. I know what she do on daily basis. I know what she has to deal with, the organizations, the multi-stakeholders who are partners with DiaLab, everyone. She plays an important and vital role with this. And personally, she is my mentor. She educated me more about diabetes, and from the organization, I started to know more about diabetes. She gave me a role for myself in a lot of times where I was simply lost in life. I was asking myself, okay, we have a political situation in Lebanon, and I know the political life in Lebanon. I was uncertain about my future, about my graduation. I frequently used to ask myself, what can I do? She was my mentor. She was the person who helped me, pushed me to be better, pushed me know more about diabetes, to educate. One of the most amazing things in DiaLab is a program called Diabetes in the Classroom. In Arabic, we call it السكري على مقاعد الدراسة. This program helped me because I remembered myself when I was back in school. I remember the stigma that I experienced when I firstly started to feel the symptoms. Then I got diagnosed with diabetes because also in my school, sadly, we don't have diabetes education. And as I said, my teachers, my entourage, everyone didn't know that much about diabetes. So I experienced a lot of stigma at school. DiaLeb played a vital role when I started to attend their advocacy campaigns, awareness programs, sports events, even their conversation cafes. And from that program, awareness in schools and universities in Lebanon, I felt that I have a role to play, which is educate people and educate schools and universities in Lebanon more about diabetes, but not from a scientific perspective, not as an endocrinologist or as a doctor. No, it's more about experience, about the lived experience. When we, the living experience, we share our story. How did we manage our diabetes? How are we dealing with diabetes? We try to give a certain example for the people who might be experiencing symptoms, because when we usually go on and do an advocacy campaign or advocacy sessions in schools and universities, we do the glucose testings, the blood testing, Konna. We find a lot of people who have high blood glucose. And one of the experiences that I experienced in a school in Lebanon, I was doing a blood test to a 12-year-old child after an education, after training and an education session about diabetes in a school in Lebanon. Her glucose in the blood was approximately 300. I told her teacher about that, that she needs to go to the hospital. She needs to talk to a doctor and also speak to her parents. Her teacher immediately said to me, "That's why she is sleeping all day in class." She thought that she was staying late at night on her phone and she was spending time on whatever social media she had on her phone. And it is something in our human form that we always go to the negative. We always assume the worst. She never asked if she was experiencing any symptoms, if she's good, maybe not diabetes wise, but mentally, physically, I don't know. We always assume the worst. We always have bad intentions towards the people. And what she experienced, I remembered myself what I experienced because I wasn't allowed to test my glucose in front of my colleagues in class. I needed to go to the bathroom. So I felt that we need more education in schools in Lebanon, and I felt that I have more role to play and an extra role to play. And that was one of my programs, and that was the main project within my YLT program project, that was awareness in schools and universities in Lebanon. And we covered the most prestigious universities in Lebanon, such as AUB, LAU, USG, my university, UZAC, also Najaz. And we also covered a lot of schools in Lebanon. We should do more. We should cover more. One advocacy session isn't enough. We should constantly and repeat our visits to those schools and universities. I don't think if it wasn't because of DiaLab, I don't think that there was a community in Lebanon or an organization that could have done this job or could have done whatever DiaLab's doing today, not simply because of DiaLab, simply because there's not an alternative than DiaLab. DiaLab is the only diabetes organization in Lebanon that focuses on advocacy, on research, and campaigning. And I'm grateful for my organization. I'm grateful for whatever they gave me, for my presence on the table, to the lobbying that I do and advocacy towards the people living with diabetes, and all the connections that I did, meeting you, Konna, meeting all of our colleagues. That was all because of the opportunities DiaLeb gave to me. So I will always be grateful for DiaLeb, Konna.
It underlines the meaning and the importance of community when it comes to diabetes. Big admiration to this organization and their scope and how they share their scope and the education they provide to people with diabetes. For thanking you and closing this really lovely session, I would like to ask you if there is or there are upcoming projects that you would like to share with us.
Konna, hopefully I will still be doing what I'm doing today. I hope I will be doing this on a larger scale. I'd like to continue working at the intersection between healthcare, diplomacy, and policy. Of course, I wish and I hope. We've met the minister last week. We were with the Minister of Public Health of Lebanon, Minister Rakan Nasruddin. I've told him about the burdens. We will continue on telling him about the burdens. We need to help and we need to build stronger health systems. It is essential. Imagine a state that doesn't have a health system. We need to strengthen international cooperation. We need to make the world and the people living with diabetes at least represented. We want to hear their voices. Their story matters because I also believe in lived experiences. Today, I have more than 10 years of lived experience. And imagine when you tell your story, a lot of people will also feel optimistic, will feel that there's a better future, or will feel inspired. And you can play without knowing, you can give them hope. You can play a vital role in their life, in their future. I wish and I wish and I wish wherever I could be a representation of Lebanon and wherever I will be a representation, because as you know, Konna, I also represented Lebanon back in November in Montreal at the SPAD as a DDoG voice. And I represented also Lebanon in the Stigma Summit in Jaipur. Being a representative of Lebanon and my parent organization, DiaLeb, I'm not being a representative of myself, but I'm holding the voices of 475,000 people living with diabetes in Lebanon. I'm holding their burdens, their grudges, their ups and downs, and I'm telling the world how we are living with diabetes. I wish in the upcoming future we had a better life, we had better technologies, we have a smoother and more easier life. Our job won't stop, our advocacy would not stop. I wish that God will also grant us a healthy life so we can continue in what are we doing, and we will continue to do so. Thank you for having me today, Konna. And it's my privilege, and what you're doing is also phenomenal and amazing. I would also like to congratulate you on everything you're doing in our advocacy world and ensuring and the continuity of healthcare from your perspective towards the people living with diabetes, whether in your country or globally, of course.
Thank you. It was a rich session. I think it's the first time that we have an active conversation with a person living in a country that facing such conflict while being an active advocate for diabetes. So thank you for the questions you raised. Thank you for the points made. I wish you all the best in your path. I'm sure we will meet somehow, some way in the future to share new ideas, new perspectives, and maybe new collaborations. I wish you all the best.
Thank you, Konna. Thank you for this. Wish you too all the best.